Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming along. As I said, my name is Phil Williams. I'm Head of Employee Programs at BI Worldwide. We're a global recognition provider whose mission is to inspire people and deliver results for our clients that include over 100 of the Fortune 500 organizations, so companies like HSBC, Roche, Coca-Cola we're working with on a daily basis. Today I'm going to talk about the evolution of their recognition strategies, how they have changed over time, how they've developed beyond their original vision, beyond their original purpose, and now are quite central to their strategies to drive employee inclusion, employee connection, and also employee performance. So obviously the fundamentals have not changed. People, value meaningful work, and they expect to be appreciated, and they value appreciation for the great work that they do and the commitment that they show. Recognition programs need to be engaging, audience smart, web enabled, mobile ready. They need to be able to involve a broad breadth of aspirational awards. And we already know that any employee that is part of a program that has that kind of formal structure in place is more than 3 times more likely to say that they have a great company culture. But there are changes, and there's a clear shift in what today's workers really value. Diversity, equity, inclusion is now central to workplace culture. Those workplaces, whether they are location-based, whether they're on-site, whether they're remote, whether they are hybrid, they're really making a heavy influence on people's engagement, but also on their physical and mental well-being. And sustainability strategies, they're driving customer choice, but also recruitment and retention as well. So in the midst of all of that change, there's some changes to the questions that employees are asking themselves also. Do I belong here? Does this company walk the talk of the values it espouses? Do I feel connected to that culture? Is it a safe space for my well-being? And ultimately, is my employer having a really positive experience on society and the wider world? So in the face of those questions, what's the relevance of the recognition strategy? Well, very often those strategies and programs are absolutely central to the employee value proposition, increasingly so. And in doing so, they become very often the most universal of people programs and one of the most consistent threads of the employee experience. Literally for some of our clients, once embedded into the daily culture, they become the trigger for literally millions of meaningful moments. I've heard moments a few times, but meaningful moments that happen outside of the usual traditional hierarchies of manager, team, and employee. So what I want to try to do, hopefully, by sharing some of our client experiences, sharing results from our global employee study, taken earlier this year, called the New Rules of Engagement, is share with you how an effective recognition strategy can really deliver insight and deliver change that will make a direct impact on inclusion, on connection, and on employee performance also. So the first of those questions, inclusion, do I belong here? Do I feel like I fit? Do I see people that like me that are progressing? And do I feel really included in this organization? And we know that there's a breadth of historic data and research that already answers this question. And just from our sources, we can see that if you feel included, if your employee feels that way, they are 17 times more likely to say that working brings out their best ideas. They are 6 times more likely to work as hard as they can for your organization. And in the research that we've just done and has just been revealed, it's supported in the same way. So we see again on the left-hand side, those who feel included are 15 times more likely to say that they find work inspiring. And there's nearly 80% of them would say that they would recommend their organization as a great place to work. But the recent survey also brought out some pretty startling results and some ominous pitfalls for those companies that aren't getting it right. So for those that feel like there's any inequity within their organization at all, they're 4 times more likely to wish that they worked someplace else. Over a third of them are already planning to leave that organization. And really soberingly, they're 7 times more likely to feel like they are a victim of harassment. And those that don't feel included are 4 times more likely to report that harassment. So clearly there's a real human and a business cost and a risk to any organization where there is a sense of inequity. But there's also huge upsides for getting it right. So again, what's the connection to the recognition strategy and how does this support that? Well, this came across pretty clearly in our research. And what we saw is that those people that feel included are very often the same people that are the recipients and the beneficiaries of great recognition. So if they feel that the good work they do will be recognized, if they see recognition given fairly across the organization, if they've received it in their current job, or they have a manager that regularly tells them that they're doing a great job, then they're ultimately 7 times more likely to say those words, I belong here, I feel included, this is where I'm supposed to be, which we're all aiming for. And that's why at BI Worldwide and other companies in our industry, we're now placing a lot of focus and a lot of investment in tools supported by AI and algorithms to create equity and inclusion advisors, recognition advisors, to help not just to improve the quality of the recognition experience for the recipient, so that that's the best possible impact that it can have, but also to make sure that nobody's bias gets in the way, whether that's confirmation, an unconscious bias, conformity bias, whatever it is, it doesn't get in the way of making other people within the organization feeling included as a consequence. So we've talked a little bit about inclusion. Hopefully I feel included, I'm in the right place to work. Next question is really how does recognition potentially make an impact to how connected I feel? How connected I feel to that culture on a daily basis. And I think probably a challenge that you're all facing is the reimagining of a workplace culture in a workplace that is no longer as one-dimensional as it used to be. Creating a new culture and trying to maintain that in a workplace where increasing numbers of people are working more remotely is obviously a key challenge. And our latest research brought out an interesting picture around this also. So you'll see on the left-hand side there a number of statements that are about positive statements about feeling connected to the organization and to your manager and to the culture. And the results on the far side are for those people that were 100% on-site, 100% remote, and some working in the hybrid. And you'll see that whilst at the moment the 100% on-site, or remote, sorry, is slightly ahead of the 100% on-site, they're broadly similar. They follow very similar patterns. Where we see a clear difference is on those that are working hybrid. Those are having the greatest results. So those that aren't currently in a hybrid role are feeling less connected to their culture, less energized and less inspired by that culture, and have less confidence that their leaders might be doing the right thing for them. But if we focus on a particular statement, that second one, if I feel connected to my company culture, and then we apply the recognition lens, we get a slightly different picture again. So we start looking at those people that have recently received recognition aligned to their business values, and those people that have. And suddenly there's a startling difference, and it's not such a big gap. So for those people that have recently received recognition, whether they are in a on-site, in a remote, or in a hybrid role, suddenly those gaps are closed and people are now more engaged and more on a similar level because they are part of the same experience through recognition. So we can see there's a potential impact from recognition to connection. One of the other things that came through quite clearly from the survey was well-being, and that question is my employer looking out for me? Do they care about my physical and mental well-being? And something that came out very strongly was around the subject of burnout. And as part of that, the survey showed that when we looked at the number of hours that somebody who was experiencing the symptoms of burnout was working versus somebody who wasn't feeling the same way, the actual difference was 1 hour a week, literally between the two. But when we looked deeper again, it came back to this sense of connection to the business. In this scenario, not so much connection to the culture, but connection to the goals and the values and the objectives of the business was where the disconnect lay. They simply felt that the work that they were doing at that moment was either not appreciated or were simply not making a difference to their organization. So if we look conversely, for those people in the survey that felt that they had a healthy workplace culture that actively supported their well-being, they were more than twice as likely to say that they're confident that they're going to feel recognized, and their manager understands them. And ultimately, overall, the businesses that had that formal recognition program in place where they were driving regular appreciation against company values were nearly 11 times more likely to say that their company actively supports them in that way. So, a little bit about inclusion. We've talked about connection also. The final point, and drawing to a close, is that about performance. And does it really make a difference to the way that I can perform within the organization? When I first started working in this sector for that first decade, there was a very clear preference in the companies that I spoke to around keeping recognition for behaviors and recognition for results as very separate entities, often different programs managed by different parts of the HR or sales organization, often with competing objectives for completely different audiences. But in the ensuing years, two things have really happened. Companies running recognition strategies have really succeeded in creating a single unified structure for reward that has been forced to take into account all of the complexities of technology, data privacy, payroll, tax, compliance, reward delivery, all of those things, and they've been very successful at it. So they've created this unified structure that suddenly is touching everybody in the business. The second piece that has happened is that the sales culture, the sales team and their culture, is no longer really existing as an island within that organization. They're far more likely now to be a part of an integrated one company vision with a single purpose and a single set of values and behaviors that applies to everybody across the board. So we are seeing a real change in this attitude towards recognition for results and recognition for behaviors being alongside each other. And the evolution that was kind of happening over the last 5 to 10 years or so of trying to reach more employees through recognition by pulling together the peer-to-peer, the manager recognition, nomination programs, service anniversaries, life events, nomination programs, trying to get to as many people as possible, that's now gone a stage further. And our existing clients have a clear focus on two other important parts of their recognition strategy. And that's adding a focus and consideration on the strategic imperatives that they have in the organization, typically things like well-being, innovation, sustainability, but also adding into the mix this recognition for results. So a lot of our clients are now really getting on board with this approach of pulling together a really wide and diverse range of opportunities for recognition and reward. That it's not a free-for-all. Obviously, there's important guidance in place to make sure that everything that we do within that program is following the original guiding principles that were laid out in the original design process of the program. But as the opportunities become more diverse and wider, obviously, that's good news for the employee in terms of the number of people that we are reaching, the number of employees are becoming more engaged, and the number of opportunities for them to earn a reward as a consequence are building upon that. And just a handful of quick examples. So one of our banking clients ran a program specific for a 2-month period, specifically focused on driving behaviors that were connected to 9 clear objectives that they had for their sustainability strategy. Over the course of 2 months, it generated, 2 months and ran over 57 countries, it generated over 200,000 personal recognitions. And from that, we were able to harvest literally hundreds of personal success stories of what great behavior looks like when it comes to supporting a sustainability strategy, which were of tremendous use in terms of spotlighting that and showcasing it to the rest of the organization. The global head of sustainability at this particular bank, it also gave him an insight into the level of existing knowledge and expertise that there was within the organization, and actually leapt his communication strategy forward by 12 months as a consequence of what he was seeing from the people in his business. Another client has taken on this approach of creating a really broad base, and they have around 60 live tactical programs running through their central recognition program at the moment. All smart, audience smart, very specific and discrete, maybe for different parts of the world or different business units, but from a range of things as diverse as hackathons, risk assessment awards, well-being, innovation, collaboration awards, all being driven through that same unified infrastructure. Ultimately, what they've done is they've managed to double the opportunity for the employee in terms of the potential for them to earn reward as a result of the great behaviors that they're displaying and the results that they are achieving in all of these various programs. And finally, most recently, a global pharmaceutical client has just designed over the last few weeks a way of using the recognition strategy to really drive energy into their oncology research and innovation strategy with a completely fresh way of looking at team awards and compensating people for breakthrough work and breakthrough outcomes in the scientific sector. So there's a very clear direction of travel in order to use that recognition strategy to bring together what were previously very disparate strands of activity within the business. And so, in closing, what's really happening in response to some of those challenges and a constantly changing workplace is we are seeing an equally fast evolution of the recognition strategies that our clients have. I mentioned at the top of the session that everybody kind of knows now what the table stakes are for a really successful employee program. And it's a well-trodden path. Whether we're there yet or not, it's a well-trodden path. There's a wealth of expertise. There's a wealth of experience out there that means that you'll get a great design and a great implementation and the support that you need to make that successful. So that piece is no longer the great challenge. The challenge is now much more focusing on these and where you can take it next. And there are three real key areas where you can take it that we've seen come out of the research and out of the behaviors from our clients. So the first of those is making your recognition strategy absolutely central to your other people programs. So whether that be onboarding, recruitment, retention, placing it front and center in that and making it involved. The second is maximizing the impact of that program on your strategic imperatives. It may be well-being, it may be sustainability, it may be innovation, but again, making sure that those are being at top of the list when you're considering how you impact the business and how you reach out using your recognition strategy. And thirdly is building a bridge between recognition and those programs all the way to your real business goals, the real business objectives, and the targets that you have within the organization. And it's by addressing those kind of three challenges that you'll really see that your recognition programs and strategy are really uniquely positioned to deliver the kind of that cohesion that you need and to deliver the kind of impact on driving inclusion, driving a greater sense of inclusion, more connection to the culture within the organization, and also more driving of performance to bigger organizational goals. I see a red light. Thank you very much for listening, but I hope that means we've maybe got a couple of minutes for questions.